For eons, we watched them from the void. These curious bipeds from the third planet of a forgotten yellow star. We Kayit, Tem humans. We saw their brief, flickering lifespans, their frail bodies, their chaotic societies driven by fleeting emotions. In the grand, silent theater of the cosmos, they were a momentary diversion, a whisper in a storm. They were deemed insignificant. We cataloged them as Class 12 life forms, non-threatening, sentimental, destined for self. Their art was crude, their science was infantile, their aspirations were confined to their own muddy little world. They dreamed of stars but were bound by gravity, a species too fragile to ever truly touch the cosmos. We turned our attention to grander things, to the symphony of celestial mechanics and the politics of star empires. We were at rend. We were catastrophically, apocalyptically wrong. Our first real notice came with the Zithar incursion. The Zithar, a swarm-intelligent species, locusts of the void, had consumed 100 worlds. Their fleets blotted out suns. When they descended upon the human colony of New Eden, our archives predicted a swift, silent, but the transmissions we intercepted were not cries for mercy. They were defiant. Against 1 million bioships, the humans fought with ships made of welded metal and controlled fission. They used asteroids as kinetic weapons. They turned their own fusion reactors into stellar bombs. They lost. Of course, they lost. But they did not break. They did not flee. They took 1,000 Zithar for every human life, a price the swarm had never paid before. They left the hive mind scarred, confused, and for the first time in its existence, hesitant. The galaxy noted it as an anomaly, a statistical improbability. Then came the Great Blight on Viridian Prime, a world we had deemed uninhabitable. Its atmosphere was a corrosive cocktail of methane and ammonia. Its pressure would crush our strongest alloys. We watched as human colony ships, crippled and fleeing a dying star, crashed onto its surface. We prepared their obituary. A century later, our probes returned. We found cities. Not cities on the surface, but burrowed into the planet's flesh, shielded by force fields of their own design. The humans had not just survived, they had adapted. Their biology had begun to change, their lungs processing toxins we considered absolute poisons. They had terraformed the planet from the inside out. They had bent a hell world to their will. It was no longer an anomaly. It was a pattern. Their weakness, their fragility, was a lie. It was a chrysalis. The Galactic Council, in its infinite arrogance, finally decided to intervene. They saw humanity's unpredictable expansion not as admirable, but as a contagion. A fleet, representing the combined might of the 10 elder races, was dispatched to their home system. Its purpose was simple: quarantine. Encase their sun in a Dyson sphere and let them fade back into myth. The ships were marvels of engineering, weapons that could crack planets, shields that could withstand a supernova's kiss. The human fleet that met them looked like relics from a museum. They were smaller, slower, hopelessly outmatched. The Council's admiral opened a channel. He offered them surrender, a peaceful, dignified internment. The human response was broadcast across all frequencies, a message not for the Council, but for the galaxy. It was a single voice, an old woman from what they called the Texan Hegemony. She said 2 words: "Try us." And then, chaos. It wasn't a battle. It was an act of galactic vandalism. The humans didn't fight by our rules of engagement. They didn't engage in elegant fleet maneuvers. They treated physics like a suggestion. They executed micro-jumps inside our shield bubbles. Their fighters, small and agile, flew directly into our weapon ports, detonating their reactors. They weaponized black holes, small, temporary singularities that tore our flagships apart from the inside. They didn't care about their own losses. They seemed to welcome them, if it meant they could take one of us with them. We watched as the pride of the Council fleet, the Starender, a vessel the size of a moon, was swarmed. Not by seeps, but by individual humans in armored suits, cutting their way through the hull with plasma torches. They were a virus, an immune response to a threat. We saw a single human pilot fly his damaged ship, the Indomitable, into the core of our command station. His final transmission not a scream of fear, but a line from an ancient poem about not going gentle into that good night. "Rage," he said. "Rage against the dying of the light." It was then we understood. We had mistaken their emotion for weakness. It was their greatest weapon. Their love for their families fueled an unbreakable resolve. Their grief for their fallen fueled a terrifying rage. Their individuality, which we saw as chaos, was their capacity for infinite, unpredictable ingenuity. Every human was a general. Every soul was a strategist. They were not a species. They were a storm. They were a force of nature given flesh and bone. When one fell, 10 more rose to take their place, not as replacements, but as avengers. Their unity was not born of logic, but of a shared primal need to protect their own. Today, we no longer watch them from a distance. We watch them with a respect that borders on fear. They have taken their place in the galactic community, not as equals, but as something more. They are the guardians at the edge of the dark, the ones who stand against the horrors of the void. They are the species that looked upon an uncaring universe and did not despair. They taught us that the measure of a species is not its lifespan or the strength of its technology, but the ferocity of its will. The galaxy is vast and full of wonders, but there is nothing more terrifying, and nothing more magnificent, than a human with their back against the wall. They are the children of Earth, and they are the inheritors of the stars. We pray we never give them a reason to be our enemies again.